In the midst of the summer season, John and his family made the decision to embark on a vacation. They secured a reservation at a charming hotel situated in the heart of a tranquil coastal town. The hotel, known as the Sea's Whisper, was a delightful throwback to a bygone era, boasting Victorian architecture and vintage decor. Upon their arrival, they were warmly welcomed by the amiable hotel staff and escorted to their respective rooms. John's room, located on the top floor, offered a stunning panoramic view of the sea. However, an eerie sensation crept over him. The room was unusually chilly, and a peculiar musty odor hung in the air. As night descended, John was roused from his slumber by a faint whisper. He scanned the room but found no one there. The whispers intensified, transforming into the desperate pleas of a woman's voice. Frightened, John flicked on the lights, only to find the room empty. The following day, he recounted the unsettling experience to the hotel manager. The manager's complexion turned ashen as he confessed that the hotel was rumored to be haunted by a woman who had met her demise at sea. She had been a guest at the hotel, and her room was the very one John had been occupying. John, a man of logic, dismissed the tale as a local legend. Nevertheless, the whispers persisted each night, growing increasingly desperate. One fateful night, he caught sight of a ghostly figure of a woman, her countenance shrouded in an aura of sorrow. Eager to assist, John made the choice to conduct an inquiry. During his investigation, he stumbled upon aged newspaper clippings detailing the disappearance of a woman named Margaret, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances while staying at a hotel. Her lifeless body was later discovered in the sea. John resolved to organize a seance in an attempt to establish communication with Margaret's spirit. As the seance commenced, the room's temperature plummeted dramatically. Suddenly, Margaret's spirit materialized, unveiling the truth behind her demise. She had been ruthlessly murdered by her husband, who had orchestrated her death to appear as a drowning in order to inherit her family's wealth. Touched by her tragic tale, John vowed to seek justice on her behalf. He meticulously gathered all the evidence and presented it to the local authorities. Consequently, the case was reopened, leading to the conviction of Margaret's now aged husband. Margaret's spirit found peace as the truth came to light, bringing an end to the whispers and restoring the room to its usual temperature. John's remaining time at the hotel was tranquil, leaving him with a sense of fulfillment as he departed. Upon returning home, he couldn't contain his smile, having turned his holiday into a thrilling ghostly escapade, complete with a tale to remember. Little did he anticipate the real twist that awaited him. A few days later, a letter from the hotel manager arrived, expressing gratitude for solving their enduring mystery. However, it also revealed a startling truth. There were no records of a guest named Margaret, nor any unsolved murders in the town. As John absorbed this information, a shiver ran down his spine. If Margaret wasn't real, then who was the spirit that haunted the hotel? It dawned on him that the hotel didn't just echo the sea's stories, but rather crafted its own narratives, ensuring each guest's stay was an extraordinary and unforgettable experience. Each year, our family had a tradition of spending the holidays at the ancient family cabin, nestled deep within the heart of a dense forest. This time around, however, there was an undeniable sense of unease that had settled over me since our arrival. The cabin, a creaky old structure that had been passed down through generations, had always exuded a warm and inviting atmosphere. But this time, there was something off about it. On the first night, as we unpacked our belongings, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision, and the wind carried whispers that seemed to call out my name. I tried to dismiss it as fatigue from the long journey and my mind playing tricks on me. But as the second night fell, the whispers grew louder and more distinct. They were no longer just the rustling of leaves or the howling of the wind. They were voices demanding to be heard. Despite my attempts to sleep, a chilling sensation gripped my heart, and my eyes refused to shut. The air inside the cabin felt heavy with an ominous dread, and I couldn't shake the feeling that an unseen presence was lurking, observing my every move. The cozy familiarity of the cabin had been replaced by an unsettling aura that left me on edge, questioning what secrets the old structure held within its walls. On the third day, I stumbled upon a hidden stash of old photographs tucked away in a forgotten drawer. As I sifted through them, I realized they were snapshots of our family, capturing moments from decades past. But as I examined each photo, I noticed a recurring, shadowy figure lurking in the background. Its presence was eerie and unsettling, casting a foreboding shadow over the cherished memories. My hands shook as I gazed at the most recent photograph, taken just last year. The figure was there again, this time closer, almost reaching out to touch my shoulder. That night, the stillness of the cabin was shattered by the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. The ominous tread echoed through the darkness, sending shivers down my spine as I lay frozen in bed, straining to hear every menacing step. The footsteps halted just outside my door, and I could sense the presence of someone, or something, lurking in the shadows, accompanied by a soft, raspy breathing. Summoning all my courage, I flung the door open, only to find nothing there. The next day, I confided in my family about the unsettling experiences I had been enduring. They dismissed it with laughter, attributing it to fatigue and stress. But I could see the unease in their eyes, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken fear that lingered in the air. Despite their attempts to brush it off, they too felt the unsettling presence that haunted our home. In the dead of night, I awoke to a chilling draft cutting through the cabin. Despite the closed windows and the dwindling fire in the fireplace, the coldness lingered. Checking on my sleeping family, I found them undisturbed. Just as I turned to head back to bed, a sight caught my eye. A pitch-black shadow, standing ominously at the hallway's end, with eyes gleaming malevolently. Slowly, it moved towards me, its shape morphing and contorting. Frozen in terror, I could only watch as it drew nearer, its bony hand grazing my cheek. A bone-chilling sensation crept into my very core, causing me to stumble and collapse to the ground. The shadow hovered above me, whispering in an incomprehensible language, flooding my mind with sheer dread. As the sun rose, I awoke in my bed, feeling the dampness of sweat on my skin. I tried to reassure myself that it was all just a bad dream, a result of my frazzled nerves. But in my heart, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all too real. The shadow was real. We decided to leave the cabin earlier than planned, ending our vacation prematurely. As we drove away, I stole a glance back at the cabin. It stood there in silence, its windows appearing ominous and dark. In one of the windows, I saw a figure watching us depart. It was the shadow, its eyes still glowing with a menacing promise that it would follow us, torment us no matter where we went. And I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the haunting was far from finished. Each year, my companions and I would book a remote cabin in the woods for our annual holiday getaway. It was a custom for us, a chance to break free from the chaos of everyday life. This time, we discovered a new cabin, nestled even deeper in the forest and more secluded than any we had chosen before. The owner cautioned us about strange occurrences, but we dismissed it as an effort to frighten city dwellers. On the first night, as we settled in, the air was heavy with an eerie quietness. The cabin was charming, with creaky floorboards and the musty smell of aged wood. While unpacking, I noticed an old, dusty mirror hanging on the wall. Its frame was intricately carved with unsettling, almost grotesque figures. Something about it made my skin crawl, but I brushed off the sensation. That night I struggled to sleep. The wind howled through the trees and the cabin creaked and groaned as if it were alive. Around midnight I heard faint whispers. Initially I thought it was my friends playing a prank, but the voices were low, guttural, and seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. I pulled the covers over my head and tried to convince myself it was just the wind. The next morning I mentioned the whispers to my friends. They laughed and teased me, saying I was just spooked by the new place. We spent the day hiking and exploring the woods, attempting to shake off the unease from the previous night. As the sun set, we gathered around the fireplace, the flickering flames casting long shadows on the walls. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. They seemed to reverberate from the mirror, the grotesque figures in the frame almost moving in the firelight. I got up to cover it, but as I approached, my reflection in the glass twisted into a hideous grin. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and fled to my room, slamming the door shut. The third night proved to be even more terrifying than the previous ones. I awoke to the chilling sound of heavy footsteps, purposefully making their way through the cabin. Holding my breath, I strained to hear as they halted just outside my door. The doorknob began to rattle and a shadow loomed beneath the crack. I silently uttered a prayer, desperately hoping that whatever was on the other side would simply vanish. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps finally receded and I cautiously allowed myself to breathe once more. The next day, I managed to persuade my friends to abandon the cabin. Though hesitant, the fear in my eyes must have been enough to convince them. As we hastily packed our belongings, I caught sight of the mirror once again. This time, the reflection revealed not only myself, but also shadowy figures lurking behind each of us, their eyes gleaming with sinister intent. We departed in haste, yet the oppressive atmosphere of the cabin seemed to linger even as we drove away. Glancing back one final time, I noticed the mirror in the window, reflecting the figures as they watched us depart. The haunting whispers plagued my dreams for weeks to come, and an unsettling feeling lingered within me, as if we had disturbed something ancient and malevolent. We never spoke of that holiday again, and the cabin remained a dark, unspoken memory. To this day, I avoid mirrors, dreading the possibility of encountering those twisted figures once more, watching and waiting in the shadows.